Well, first off, thank you very much indeed for coming down to the amazing bar that is the Karaoke Hole. Hopefully everyone's got plenty of drinks here. So what we're going to do now, we are going to do a couple of short readings from the book. This one here. It's a very good one if you want to read it, by the way. It's available at the exit. You won't be allowed out without it. Adam looks very friendly, but don't cross it. How did this come about? Well, as some of you may know from some of our conversations or social media posts, we have some slight concerns about what's going on in the world today, don't we, Melanie? Some. And so we basically have been inspired by some of the amazing leadership and the truth and honesty and transparency that we see in society today, right coming down from the top, and we have written a little homage to that.
So some of you may be wondering why I'm dressed in this marvellous Chinese gown. Well, I thought that would illustrate just how easy it was going to be to trade after Brexit. I went into the Shanghai #1 department store, and yes, that is what it's called, and I said to a lady, dress, and she went, size. And I went, small, and she went, medium, and she was absolutely right. I don't know why they're worried. It's going to be an absolutely double of a situation. This makes sense. Now, over to me.
It is. Now, I do have to say that I could see perfectly in June 2016. So, anyway, without further ado, let's go to the first reading. And the first reading is about a gentleman called Rupert Watson, or Rupert Twatson, as I like to call him. Rupert saw it as soon as he opened the refrigerator door. The remnants of last night's Black Forest Gatto made his jaw sag open. The memory of that delicious, sweet, melt-in-the-mouth cherry-on-top creaminess was intoxicating. It was simply heaven on a fork. The soy milk he had been searching for was ignored, forgotten in fact, as his hand reached greedily for the temptation on the plate. He plunged the spoon that had been intended for his brown cereal deep into the dish, and upon the first cool taste, felt his mouth almost explode with delight. He ate another spoonful, then more and more, until he had consumed the entire thing. His gobbling was now starting to make him feel slightly nauseous. He had a vague memory that the cake was supposed to have made an appearance at afternoon tea that day to save Susan, his wife, from yet another trip to Waitrose. The empty plate now stared accusingly at him. As he turned to place it in the sink, he caught sight of the abandoned brown cereal left high and dry in its lonely bowl. He took immediate, decisive action and threw it in the bin. It happened naturally to be the recycling bin, but as Brown tasted like cardboard at the best of times, he was sure he could make a winning argument justifying his selfishness. Anyway, he was far too busy a man to even think of retrieving any unpleasant little flakes and putting them in the food waste. Nor could he be bothered rinsing the gatto plate. He would remember to reserve his most garden gnomish smile for Susan later on. There was little, after all, that his cheery grin and bonhomie couldn't solve. Rupert Watson had long used charm to get out of sticky situations. He was going to need a great deal of it to extract himself from the mess he had managed to get himself into at work. He had always found environmental issues a frightful bore, despite the obvious opportunities for showing oneself in a good light by doing something green in a public place. Rather like Norman Tebbett's father, he had known when it was necessary to get on his bike in order to go looking for a role. It could even be a bit of a jape in small doses. It sometimes involved fun countryside activities or commissioning some space-age electric vehicle. The reality, however, was quite unlike the fun parts that he had so enjoyed playing with in front of the media. Reality gave him cold, hard plans for carbon reduction, interminable international negotiations over who would do what, and worst of all, difficult, complex trade-offs between short-term costs and long-term benefit. Except where his own advancement was concerned, Rupert had never been big on the long term, often not looking past the next meal, and almost never past the next electoral cycle. His brain also struggled with the concept that any inconvenient issues, sometimes directly caused by his actions, could not be smiled, glad-handed, or tweeted away in an effusion of cleverly chosen long words. The recent disastrous climate talks in Algiers had thrown Rupert in with those most terrifying of adversaries, fact-driven officials who were utterly impervious to his charm. The British accent had cut no ice with the Americans, and his reasonable French had totally failed to woo the delegation from Paris. The Chinese had been mystified by his jovial humour and attempts to lighten the mood. In fact, his clowning around had seemed to exacerbate their irritation at the fact that he had not read the briefing papers. He had tried, but the level of tediousness had soon overwhelmed his threadbare resolve, and he had given up, flinging the papers down in a heap. Surely he had advisers to do all that dull stuff. He was the Foreign Secretary, after all. Despite such occasional setbacks, Rupert had always known that he was destined for high office. It had rather amused him when his teachers had told him that he lacked the power of sustained concentration required in order to thoroughly master a topic. As if that were important in politics. He excelled, instead, in gaining a veneer of knowledge, a patina of understanding, a soupçon of expertise, from a smattering of facts picked up in a fun, easily digestible format, and then repackaging those slim pickings to suit whatever purpose he happened to espouse on the day. This approach had served him exceedingly well. He had bounded through local politics and was all set for the national stage. Then there had been the incident. His advisers had warned him not to lie on his campaign brochure. Pish and poppycock, he had retorted, as if anyone would ever have the patience to research such arcane statistics. Besides, the erroneous facts had supported his point beautifully. He was not going to sacrifice a winning argument on the altar of mere truth and accuracy. Unfortunately, one of those wretched little liberal democratic sympathising journalists had trawled through the appendices of the government report in question and had called him out in no uncertain terms. Rupert had tried to blame an aide. Samantha had been a jolly good egg to take the fall for that one, but it had cost him the poll and any future chance in that particular constituency. It had, however, been a blessing in disguise.